Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another family time. To those who are joining via Facebook or YouTube Live, as always, we're happy to have you. Now, this is family time, and family time is about your issues and your relationships, your time at home, your family abroad, and abroad, your international family. Family time is the place. Now, family time is produced by the Family Life Ministries, and our aim is to enable healthy families which will lead to a healthy nation. So stay tuned. Please join us on all our platforms. We are on Facebook and YouTube Live and also Instagram. I am your host, Mika Scott Walters, and guess what? Today we will be having a very interesting discussion. Today we'll be talking about sex and reproduction with your child for the first time. Now, we know that it can be an uncomfortable discussion. However, it is best for your child to learn for the very first time the information directly from you. Now, it's best to do so rather than picking up inaccurate information on the playground or at sleepovers or guess, even on the internet. So, we'll be talking about the birds and the bees. Now, what you learned about this topic, you've probably have memory still, do you? Well, let's find out. We want you to tell us whether or not you recall the conversation you had as a child and where or whom did you learn the birds and bees talks from. So, we invite you to answer a question today. Where or from whom did you learn the birds and the bees talk? Remember, you can contact us on Facebook by sending your text and your voice notes, no longer than 30 seconds, and you may send it to 876 997 3125. You may give us a call on our studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 968-8328 to participate. Remember, you can also comment on our live platforms, Love 101 Facebook, or on our YouTube page. Now, we'll be right back with our very special guest for today, Claudine Anderson Atkinson, counseling psychologist. So come, don't go anywhere.
Let's get up and go. Time to explore.
Yo, this is Papa San. I'll be at Love 101 FM I Love Summer Tour, and the final stop will be at the Harmony Beach Park in Montego Bay, August 26th. Don't miss it. Check it, bless it, respect it. Yeah, that me love about you. And remember, get your tickets early. Yeah, and showtime is at 6 o'clock. Yeah, Jesus make me smile again, scream again, laugh again. Yeah. My love.
I love it. I love summer. Oh, I love it.
Get ready for another inspiring show this Testimony Tuesday inside Alive, 1 to 5 August 22. Packed with inspirational stories and Allen-flavored music. 1:45, we bring you the brain testing winter size. Stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock as we ring in the prayer bells of heaven. 2:15 inside the evidence, we share with you another powerhouse testimony boasting about the power of God. Then at 3 p.m., we go behind the pulpit with recording gospel artist and preacher, Pastor Tyrone Thompson. But you know him better as Papa San. All this and more will come alive 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. August 22 with me, Sarah and the Chirpy One on the family station Love 101, celebrating 30 years of music, family, and love.
Welcome back. Welcome. If you are just joining, guess what? You are in tuned to Family Time. And we have a very special guest today who is Miss Claudine Anderson Atkinson. Now, Mrs. Atkinson, how are you today?
Hi, good afternoon. I am well and eager to plunge into the discussion on the birds and the bees, so sex and sexuality, and having those conversations with our young ones.
Okay, very good to know. Guess what? As happy and excited as you are to talk about the topic, our listeners, look, everybody is excited to hear about the bird and bees talk. Um, the aunties, the uncles, the parents, anyone who may have
Yes.
responsibility for a child or child interaction. Now, we want to hear from you listeners. So, Mrs. Anderson Atkinson will be with us for the next hour. Remember, we want to hear from you. Where or from whom did you learn about the birds and bees? WhatsApp, text, send your voice notes. Remember to keep them 30 seconds or less, and you may send to 876 997 3125. Watch us also and comment live on Love 101's Facebook or YouTube page, or give us a call at our studio lines at 876 968 8327 or 876 968 8328 to participate. Now, we know time flies real fast, so let's jump in. Doc, why is it important for us to have the birds and bees talk?
Well, it's important because it's so all encompassing. We think about the birds and the bees as just kind of how where babies come from or avoiding pregnancy, but there's so much more to it. We are created as holistic beings, which includes our sexuality, you know, and how we view our bodies, how the and all of those zones all over our body, so not just the our private parts, has implications in how we form relationships, how we view ourselves, and how we have conversations with others, both persons who are older than us and persons who are younger than us, and also how we keep ourselves safe. So it's really important for all the adults who are charged with interacting with children, the aunties, the uncles, the fathers, the mothers, the teachers, the Sunday and Sabbath school teachers, to be conversant and comfortable with conversations around sexuality so that we can naturally talk to our young ones about these things, because it impacts everything. I've had too many experiences in my clinical work in private practice and in academia with persons who are shackled because of different traumatic or unpleasant, invalidating experiences around sexuality that doesn't just show up in sexual spaces, but in everyday interactions. And it starts from how we have these conversations very, very young. So, why is it important? Because it impacts so many areas of our lives.
Thank you so much, Doc. Doc, we know it impacts So many areas. We just learned that from you. We're taking our notes. But life is full of so many stages. Is there a specific time that we need to have this conversation? Is there a best practice? Perhaps a specific age? Um, the surrounding? Where do these conversations need to take place? Perhaps a best time of day. What are the conditions surrounding the best practices for that?
Okay, so the best relationship, the best and first relationship context that these conversations should emerge in for safety reasons, emotional and physical safety reasons, is the caregiving relationship. So we know that in our Caribbean context, the caregiver isn't always the mother or the father. Sometimes it's the grandma, sometimes it's the auntie, sometimes it's the uncle. So whomever has primary responsibilities for the caregiving and the development of the child, those are the persons who need to initiate these conversations. And I want us to think about these conversations not just as a one-off, not that check, I had that conversation when I was 12 or 10. That's too late. We want to start having these conversations early. It can't be too early. It's just what are we saying and how much detail and what we talk about in relation to sexuality is going to change or be more expansive as children age. So I have a 2-year-old, and I have started talking with her about sexuality, specifically at her age, her anatomical parts. So she knows about her bottom and her vagina and safe and unsafe touch and private parts and how what isn't okay by whom, right? And she's very curious. So she has asked questions that maybe are a little older than you'd expect for a 2-year-old, but it's going to be really important for us. So it's going to, and I engage her based on her maturity and her age. So it's never too early to have conversations about sexuality when we think about sexuality in a broad way. So not just our body parts, not just where babies come from, not just how to keep ourselves safe, but what it means to be male and female and what's the purpose and function of those parts. But it will change what we talk about and in how much depth is going to be a function of the emotional and cognitive maturity of the child. So at early childhood, you're primarily talking about body parts and safety and function. As you approach tween years, remember you're starting early, so it's a continual unfolding conversation. As you know, we have children who are starting menstruation and puberty at 8. So if we're waiting until 10, too late, right? So we're also being guided by our child in having those conversations. So we talk about puberty as they get a little older and start experiencing the bodily changes. We talk as they become teens. We talk about how to keep ourselves safe and pregnancy and the reality of sexual assault is something that we also need to be talking about.
Okay.
What it means
I got it. I think I'm
all of those things.
Okay, Doc. Thank you so much. I'm getting it. The earlier we start, the better. It may be too late to start when they are already at that puberty stage, and so the earlier 2-year-old is not too soon, and the conversation has to do with different stages. So a 2-year-old, we're teaching about the body parts. We're teaching about appropriate touch, good touch, bad touch. We're looking at that. Now we are getting somewhere, Doc, and I'm happy. And I also want to hear from our listeners. So remember to tell us where or from whom did you learn about the birds and bees. Send us your WhatsApp, your voice notes. Remember to keep them 30 seconds or less and to send to 876 997 3125 or comment on our Facebook or YouTube page. Now, I am absolutely sure that Mrs. Anderson Atkinson will be more than happy to respond to any questions you may have. We will be right back after this break.
Jamaica Central Bank digital currency is now here. Jamdex, no cash, no problem. Step into a future of ease, convenience, and security. Conduct business with your mobile device instantly and without fees. This is how life should be with Jamdex. You catch it free. Jamdex are the real free. Use it to buy a stove or TV. You can buy your shoes or 3 piece. Get the central bank digital currency. No cash, no problem. Jamdex, backed by the Bank of Jamaica.
Bible Society of the West Indies now has Bibles in stock for back to school. All versions are available at reasonable prices. Quantity discounts for bookstores and retailers. Visit them at 24 Hadley Park Plaza, Kingston 10. You can call or WhatsApp them at 876-339-3501 or email them at biblehouse@biblesocietywi.org.
Let's get up and go. Time to explore.
Get your tickets for I Love Summer, Harmony Beach, Montego Bay, Saturday, August 26th. Available at all Fontana locations island-wide. Only $1,000 for adults, children 12 and under, $500. See you at I Love Summer, Isles Montego Bay. Get your tickets now.
It's so hot.
Hey my peeps, get this on the regular. Your HIV status if you consider. The least you ever test once a year. Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Cause it might not show up on your timeline and you learn too late so you're out of time. A progressive future, mandatory. Really long life, our story. You hear?
Remember, update your status in a real life. Do an HIV test today.
Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Really long life, our story. Real long life was a youth coming from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Cinerose Chromium Plus is an all-natural herbal product formulated specially for people with type 2 diabetes. An elevated sugar level in the blood will lead to renal failure, damage to the brain, and amputation of your toes or feet, damage to the heart, stroke, ECT. Cinerose Chromium Plus will reduce the level of sugar in the blood, taking it down to normal, and protect you. To get your Cinerose Chromium Plus, call Havco Herbs and Extracts, 876-540-8871.
GPS. Keep it cool, keep it cool. Summertime hot, but we have all the tools. Keep it cool, keep it cool.
No ways to see it, you just have to choose. Stay out of the fridge, just use a igloo. Remember your Kisco ice and the juice.
If an AC combo, yeah, I hit that. AC fear bit, then up and after that. Keep it cool, keep it cool.
This summer JPS have all the tools.
Keep you cool with JPS. Download the JPS app today.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome back. Now, Claudine Anderson Atkinson, counseling psychologist, is our very special guest for today. You have heard Andy's talk. Remember to WhatsApp, send us your voice notes, send us your text. Keep your voice notes no longer than 30 seconds and send it to 876-997-3125. Watch us now on our pages and comment also. Or give us a call in studio at 968-8327 or 876-968-8328. Now, before we went for the break, Doc, you told us about having the conversations sooner than later. You also told us that, look, different conversation for different stages ages. We know there is no manual for caregivers or parents, as really hope there would be. And so, for the birds and bees talk, I have to ask you, where do we get this information? And how do we know what to bring up and when?
Right. So that's very important because sometimes our caregivers, if they don't have accurate information and they're not comfortable with their own sexuality, they can actually perpetuate some unhelpful stories and myths. So where do we get the information? We want to have the information from reputable sources. So we want to have there are numerous books that we can access, whether it's textbooks or books provided by the ministry. We have also, for those of us who are guided by the Christian ethic or religious ethic, we also have our religious sources, the Bible and other reference guides. From our universities also provide useful content. Even our magazines and our Gleaners the Gleaner newspaper sometimes has useful information. So there's no shortage of validated and useful information. The trouble is when we're depending on some of the folklore and some of the stories that we heard that maybe several generations passed on to us, but it's not anchored in anything that is scientifically bounded. So I'm speaking specifically around, I've had conversations with young ones who are teens who were bewildered that they could, for example, get pregnant after having intercourse once, or they were devastated that they were pregnant when they hadn't actually engaged in sexual intercourse, or persons who have been victimized, sexually violated, but they didn't know. It felt uncomfortable, but because of the nature of the relationship between them and the perpetrator, they didn't have a clear sense of what was appropriate or not appropriate because those messages had not been clearly discussed with them. So where do we get the information from? Validated sources. And what was the second part of the question? I'm getting so excited that I'm forgetting some of what you're saying.
You got it. Look, Doc, you hit the nail right on the head. It is how do we know what to talk about, and where do we get the information from? So I've made notes, Doc. I know reputable sources. It could be textbooks. It could be material provided by the Ministry of Education. It could be religious content as well, the Bible. And these are some of the ways that we can utilize use for our discussions. Now, Doc, I noticed you mentioned some teenagers that you would have engaged with, and they were bewildered. They may not have recognized that they would have been in a situation of abuse because they would not have been educated about the birds and bees talk, about the conversations you're now having with your 2-year-old about touch that's appropriate and inappropriate and about their private parts. Now, when we have these conversations now, we know where to find the information, and as much as our information is accessible to the young ones too on the internet, we're making every effort to get it right. So tell us, do we just have the talk? Because not all of us are so good at talking. These kids can be intimidating and we may fumble at the lips, and grandmother who may be raising her grandson or granddaughter may not be so confident. So do we look at perhaps other methods? Can we utilize videos or audios, or perhaps show them this good video where Doc is talking and Doc will do the explaining for us?
Sure. So we can use other sources to augment our discussions, but I want us to know that as caregivers, it's our responsibility to open the lines of communication. because often, because we love our children, it's not so much getting everything right, it's about establishing and maintaining a comfortable relationship where we can talk about things that are so significant, whether we're uncomfortable or not. So it's awkward for many of us because of how we were grown and how the conversations happened with us and our own sense of ourselves as sexual beings. And so it's okay if it feels awkward, if we fumble, if we might, say something and then we maybe have to go back to the little ones or the bigger little ones and make amendments. That's okay, because they know that we love them and they will be very forgiving. It is okay for us to augment with videos and articles and books. I remember I didn't actually have my parents didn't have a conversation per se with me about the birds and the bees. I remember my father taking home a book and gifting me with this book. That was his way of communicating the birds and the bees. I'm not sure if the viewers, this might very well be dating me, but it was the complete tween. And it chronicled all the body changes, the emotions. It was very useful, and I read it, and it helped me to kind of make sense of things, along with what was also being shared in my classes at school, and so know that you don't have to do this alone. You can use resources, you can incorporate aunties and uncles that you trust. It's important, though, that you vet the material that you're using and that you're very sure that the person who is having the conversation or helping you to have the conversation is a safe, trusted individual, so that what they're sharing is what you want communicated to your child, and that the relationship that is being established is one of safety as opposed to exploitation.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc. So we can always engage the services of auntie and uncle or whomever adult is trusted by us and who will engage in a conversational level that we agree to. Now, Doc, I want you to be an auntie for me, because that way I can always pull on you to have these conversations.
Sure.
So, Doc, I remember you talking about the resources, and we have so much at our disposal. Doc, I know that book that you're talking about, the book on the twin. I don't know if it exists now, but I know the book existed there. So
Yeah.
we have the book can use, we can call auntie and uncle, and we can have the discussions. But Doc, how are we able to gauge what is too much or what is not enough? Is there perhaps a recommended guide that goes with the genders, whether you have this conversation with boys and you have this conversation with girls, or is there a guide that perhaps goes along the age groups? So we'll have this at the kindergarten level and at the primary level or at the pre-puberty. Is there such a guide or a recommendation you can offer?
Well, when I think about the early years, early childhood years, so like before 8, the conversations are primarily about body parts and maintaining safety and function, and that different individuals have different body parts and what distinguishes. No, I know this is controversial. This discourse in our day and age, but there are still biological differences between male and female, and so having those conversations and about gender, because sexuality also includes not just the biological but also the cultural and the value aspects and roles. So having those conversations with or young children as they transition, they're getting to 8 and older. Now, these age guidelines are not fixed. You're also modulating the conversations that your child is bringing to you. Because remember, the home is just one space that the conversations can happen. Conversations can start from what is happening at school in the formal curriculum, but also with their peers. They'll come and they'll ask questions, and you'll have to respond to that. All right. But outside of those conversations, usually around 8 and the preteen years, that's when they're noticing maybe that some of their peers are having some bodily changes. So whether it's boys or girls, they'll notice the pubic hair, the enlargement of the breast, the expansion of the hips. And so explaining what those are, what to look forward to, then the nocturnal emissions that will eventually come, the menstrual flow that will start. We want to have those conversations so they know what to expect before it happens, because it can be terrifying to wake up one morning for the boy to have an emission or for the girl to notice a spot and think, I am dying. Because I've actually had scenarios where that has been the case, because there hasn't been a conversation. It happens and they don't know how to make sense of it. Blood means some injury or death, and we don't want to have our children kind of being in those situations. All right. And then even things like STIs, those are conversations we want to have as well. And then as they get older into teen and pre-adult, we're talking about roles and keeping safe, sexual assault, all of those things. So it's more, I think about it in relation to stages as opposed to ages, but also incorporating what the child is bringing to you, because they are curious and they'll ask questions, especially if you set a relationship context that is open, where they can ask, they will. If you create a scenario where they don't feel safe to ask you, they'll ask somebody else. And then you don't know what kinds of answers they'll get.
Doc, that is a lot of information, but I'm absolutely happy that we have it clear. It's not so much about the ages, but the stages. So we get it right, ensure that we are aware of how to approach, I want to say, these critical moments. Now, remember, we are going to head to a break, but just so you know, our FLM head office in Kingston, the contact number is 876-920-1034 or 876-926-8101. When we get back, we will still be talking about the birds and the bees. So call a friend, tell a friend, have them join us. And before we get to the break, let's go to a word to flesh moment with Rev Mike in the episode WTF, Words to Flesh moment.
Human development practitioners advise that parents should take the time to candidly speak to their children about sex. However, throughout the centuries, many parents have found this difficult. Ravi Karkara captured the current complexities of sexual issues that make parents shy away. Ravi said, "I feel bad for parents nowadays, for they have to explain the birds and the bees and the bees, the birds and the birds that used to be bees, the bees that used to be birds, the birds that look like bees, and the bees that look like birds but still have a stinger." In Proverbs 22 verse 6, parents are instructed to train up a child in the way he should go. Therefore, as parents, we have to man up and take care of this responsibility. Here's some advice on how to approach this. Number 1, put aside your shyness and reluctance about sex. Number 2, learn as much good, solid, factual, and truthful information on sex and sexual development as you can. Number 3, set aside time to speak to your child about sex. Allow for questions from your child and refrain from giving them misleading information. Don't tell them silly things like you got your baby from a stork. In the Bible book of Genesis, the writer made the first sexual contact between two human beings very clear. It says, and Adam was intimate with his wife, and she conceived. Remember now, you don't have to share everything in one go. Segment the information and ensure that it's child compatible. I'm Reverend Mike from Fellowship Tabernacle, and we just had a WTF moment.
Get your Western Union back to school bonus from now until September 22. 50 winners of $10,000 every week. Millions in scholarships of up to $100,000 each. And double your Western Union money transfer in your GK1 wallet to get you ready for the new school year. You could be one of over 300 winners. Just download the GK1 app, receive a Western Union transfer in your GK1 wallet, and you're automatically entered to your back to school bonus. Visit gkmsonline.com for all the rules. Authorized under Section 58 of the Betting Gaming Laws present.
Hey my peeps, get this on the regular. Your HIV status if you consider. The least you ever test once a year. Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Cause it might not show up on your timeline and you learn too late, so you're out of time. A progressive future, mandatory. Really long life, our story.
You hear?
Remember, update your status in a real life. Go HIV test today.
Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Really long life, our story. Real long life for youth, coming from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Have you just finished grade 11? Looking for a 2-year sixth form pathway to earn overseas local certificate diploma and advanced diploma and get qualified to work locally and internationally? Register now. Start free sixth form at IIRQ Academy. Start our new sixth form program online or face-to-face classes in September. Choose between pathway 1, 2, or 3. Paid for by the Ministry of Education. For more information, call 876-322-4029 or visit 32 Hope Road, Kingston or 1 Perry Road, Montego Bay. Website www.iirq.org.
Let's get up and go.
Do you own a business or have a valuable product or service you want to share with the world? Call us now to be an exhibitor at I Love Summer, ILS, Saturday, August 26th. For more information, call the Love 101 sales team at 876-424-3552. That's 876-424-3552.
So, do you think you can sing? Like, seriously sing? And would you want to be in the running to win a professional recording? Well, listen up. Love 101 in association with Pioneer Music is offering a free recording contract for one song to the person who wins the I Love Summer Sing-Off competition. Here's what you need to do. Simply record a 1-minute video of you singing a gospel song of your choice, post it on your social media platform and tag Love 101 FM Jamaica and Pioneer Music JA between Monday, August 21 and Thursday, August 24. You must be able to attend the I Love Summer final show on Saturday, August 26 at Harmony Beach in Montego Bay between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. when the sing-off will take place. Only the top singers will be chosen. So, what are you waiting for? Do your vocal warm-ups and get to recording your video, and don't forget to tag Love 101 FM Jamaica and Pioneer Music JA. You'll be contacted to know if you have been chosen to be in the final sing-off in Montego Bay. I Love Summer. The final show is Saturday, August 26th. I Love Summer on Love 101, the family station.
Thank you for joining us and welcome back. It is family time and it is now 6:10 p.m. Now, our discussion for today, we are talking about the birds and bees conversation. And remember, we want to hear from your viewers. What or from whom, where or from whom did you learn about the birds and bees? Now, Doc shared with us the importance of having the conversation at the appropriate time so that we get to know what's happening before it happens and not have to endure the surprise of learning about it after some grand event. Now, Doc, I wanted to ask you, when we have our conversation between girls, do we allow each group to know what happens to the other? So will I educate my daughter on what it is that happens with the opposite sex, or do we only tailor the conversation to speak to the specific gender?
It's helpful for like a comprehensive understanding of human sexuality for us to be having conversations, not just about how my body changes and how sexuality impacts me, but what it can look like for the opposite gender. Now, most of the direct queries initially might relate to my body and the changes relating to me, or because usually the conversations are happening first with peers. That's something for us to think about. And in this area of social media, so much of the exposure around sexuality is happening on the platforms. And there can be lots of distortions, but social media can also be a useful resource if we're managing that. So I remember I was in the 5th grade at school when they decided to show the penultimate, the ultimate video on the changes, the body changes and menstruation. And the girls went to one room and the boys went to one room. And that's valuable for us to understand our bodies. But it's helpful as caregivers, as we're having those conversations, to not feel limited in only having the conversations specific to our gender, but so that the child can have an appreciation of just in general what sexuality can look like.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc. So we try to share the information across the group so that they are informed. And Doc, in the WTF Words to Flesh moment with Rev Mike just now, look, he said it best and I really wanted to laugh. Back then, it was just mainly the birds and the bees talk. You have your boys going to one room, your girls going to a next. But now it's the bird, the bees, the eagles and the trees, the fishes in the sea, and everything. Gay society, even with, as you mentioned, social media and the little peer discussions that are happening, the visibility of the world through the World Wide Web. How do we engage and introduce conversations that speak to gender fluidity, transgender, homosexuality, and all the other ranges that presently exist?
Well, I think it really is valuable for us to present sexuality as something that is beautiful and that we're gifted with as humans. For those of us who embrace faith, we were created beautifully at the hands of God. And even though the original sin, we continue to feel the effects of that, I am still a beautiful being created by God. Now, that doesn't mean that there hasn't been distortions. That doesn't mean that we won't have struggles that might be common or less common. And it's important for parents to be prepared for some of the questions that might come as I try to figure out who am I to love, how am I to be, as opposed to kind of shutting down talk prematurely and then our young ones turn to other sources of information because they're wandering and trying to make sense of their identity. Also, I know this is a struggle for some of us who are very traditional. We think that there's no other way, there's no other conversation at all about anything. It's still going to be helpful for us to listen to our young ones. They're in their classes amongst their peers because they have access to the global web. Everything that exists out there, they're going to be curious about. And so it's important for us to become familiar even with the terms, whether we believe that they're valid or not, know some of the phraseologies so that we can appear at least in sync and knowledgeable and seem credible as we provide guidance and direction. And amidst it all, I think it's very helpful for us to resist the impulse to communicate hate, even if there's a difference. We want to guide our children based on our values, but we also want to communicate the beauty and the blessing of us as human and sexual beings. That's going to look different from one context to the next based on our values, but it still is important for us to set a context that is safe, that can engender conversation, because if you don't have the conversation, they're going to have it with others.
Thank you so much, Doc. So we have to be mindful that yes, we are trying and our values to our children, but in doing so, we should still be conscious of the different areas, whether or not we are in agreement with them. We still need to have conversations about them, because if we fail to have the conversations with them in the appropriate context where we can pass on our values, someone else will, and the lesson they learn may not be the lesson we want to teach. Doc, I know that it has been interesting so far, but guess what? We are at that point when we are heading into our final break. Remember, this is Family Time on Love 101. We are on YouTube and Facebook Live. Now, Family Time is produced by the Family Life Ministries. For our social media interaction, we want you to let us know where or from whom did you have the birds and bees talk. Let us know via WhatsApp text, or you may send us your voice note no longer than 30 seconds, and you may send to 6-997-3125. Visit our Facebook or YouTube page and comment, or give us a call in studios at 876-968-8327 or 8328 to participate. This evening, we are talking about the birds and bees with one of our favorite counseling psychologists, Claudine Anderson Atkinson. Stick around, soon come.
NIS pensioners, avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
Here's why you can't afford to miss the Morning Watch.
I love listening to the Morning Watch because topics are discussed and issues are highlighted that are of major importance, which in turn edify me.
The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
I like listening to the Morning Watch. I find it very informative. I find it very interesting. The topics that are covered are very, very wide.
The Morning Watch, thought-provoking, insightful, currents. Listen for the probing questions with attorney at law Stokely Marshall and the in-depth discussion with Reverend Dr. Dallin Toussaint. Every Wednesday, the Morning Watch is brought to you by Chris and Charles. When you think loans, think Chris and Charles. The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The Morning Watch is on the family station Love 101.
Welcome back. It is now 6:20 p.m. and you are tuned to Love 101, Family Time, brought to you by the Family Life Ministries. FLM, Family Life Ministries, provides counseling for people from all walks of life, regardless of any challenge you may be facing. Listen out for our numbers at the end of this program. And do remember that we are on Facebook and YouTube Live. So be sure to tune into the program and to answer today's question as we talk about the birds and the bees with counseling psychologist Claudine Anderson Atkinson. Doc, the conversation has been extremely important, and I've taken all the notes necessary that you have shared. I wanted to ask Doc that as parents and as caregivers, what if we think we just can't do it? It is, and as we think about the topics that we need to be aware of, even if it is we don't believe in it, we will still communicate love. We still need to be aware of it, keep up with all the changing terms, and be able to address it. So what if I just think, Doc, I can't even remember the term, the gender fluidity, the A to Z. What do I do next?
Well, regardless of who you are and where you are, you have access to resources. So your child is still a minor, so there's a guidance counselor at your school. We have several faith communities, and you be diligent and careful, but still utilize your network to help you to have those conversations. No, you're not passing the buck. It's not in place of. So if you don't feel comfortable, you need to talk with these people so that you can become more comfortable. But you can also go with your child, assuming that there is the possibility of building a comfortable relationship, and you can have the conversation with the help of that person. Because again, we want you to be the backdrop, because those individuals will come in and out of the child's life. You're going to be the permanent factor. And so you need to get more comfortable. You don't get to pass the buck. But we know that based on your background, based on, all the different factors, you might not be prepared. And it's okay. I think it's very helpful for us to know when we're prepared and less prepared, and to utilize the resources, the aunties, the uncles, the other leaders, the teachers, the guidance counselors, the persons who you have vetted and that you can trust, that you are going with your child to, as opposed to just sending your child, and utilizing those resources in starting and maintaining some of these conversations.
Thank you so much, Doc. So we don't just clearly pass the baton on to auntie and uncle or whoever it is we think is more suited than us to have the conversations. We try to learn, also try to educate ourselves, allow them to train us. So, Doc, I'm going to engage with you after this program to see how you can offer me some training to have the conversation. But
yes,
parents and caregivers, we really try to make an effort. And if we are getting the help of other persons to do so, we ensure that we are present in the moment. Try to be there with our kids utilize resources that are accessible to us through our faith communities, such as church and our pastors and counselors, whether at church or counselors in school. Now, Doc, I am going to be there for the conversation, and we've had the lesson, and you've taught me to have the conversation. No, when I am in the middle of having the birds and bees talk, I have a child who is much like your 2-year-old. And so they hit me with a question right in the middle. I mean, only have my little notebook here, Doc, with all the things that you have told me. And so, what do I do in the middle with this question they're now throwing at me?
Well, I think it's really helpful for us to be as authentic and genuine with our children as we can muster. Because again, it's not just about the details of the conversation, it's about the relational dynamic that such an intimate conversation can engender. We want to think about this as a life journey, because even though you're starting it in childhood, you want to, as long as you are alive and your child is alive, even as they get to adulthood, that they can still see you as a reference point around conversations around sexuality, right? So in the moment, if you're frozen or you're bold, you can say, that's a really good question. I didn't think about that before. Let's do some homework together. Let's talk to this person together about it. That's okay. You don't have to have all the answers. In fact, it models genuineness and authenticity and curiosity that can only be useful gifts that we give our children. Sometimes we think as adults that we have to present a know-it-all front, but sometimes that can be unhelpful. We share what we know. We communicate that it isn't everything. We're still developing. So much of the science is still emerging. So it's okay if you don't have all the answers, but just be prepared to have a lifelong learning relationship with your child on this topic of sexuality.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc. Doc, I cannot believe that almost an hour has passed. Today to have a discussion for both of us to learn together, to get back to the questions they ask. So give us briefly in a minute one word of advice for us to take away as caregivers.
Sexuality is beautiful. And we have this important privileged position of communicating that with our children, keeping them safe, but helping them to love their bodies and love themselves as sexual beings. And there's no one script, there's no right script, we're just doing it together.
Thank you so much, Doc. Parents, you heard it from Doc herself, Dr. Anderson Atkinson, counseling psychologist. Thank you, Doc. And thank you, our listeners, for being here with us today. If you have questions of a personal nature, or you're concerned about a family or a friend or any loved one, give Family Life Ministries a call for more information on our service and other parts of the island. You may contact the head office at 876-920-1034 or 876-926-8101. Please note that the Portmore Family Life Ministries office is presently closed, so all counseling matters should be referred to the Kingston location at 1 Cecilio Avenue. Now, you may contact our numbers if you need to make appointments, because appointments must be scheduled. Otherwise, to keep up to date with what's happening with Family Life Ministries and all our programs, find us on Facebook at FLM Family Life Ministries And please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page, Family Life Ministries, FLMJA. Now, before we leave, here is this evening's Bible verse. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 27. Please join us again next week at 5:30 p.m. on Love 101 FM or Facebook and YouTube page. Via Instagram, we are always ready and willing and ready to get another informative program up for you. Thanks again to our very special guest today, counseling psychologist Claudine Anderson Atkinson. And thanks also to our show producer, Kathy Gale, Open Door Communications, studio facilitator, Timoy Butler, and of course, you, our valued listeners. Stay well, stay safe, and stay blessed. I'm your girl, Tamika Scott Walters. See you next time.